Daru,
Sharab,
alcohol,
Daru,
mud,
Madira. So alcohol is bad. Disclaimer. Salud.
salud.
What can you call as an Indian beer?
We cannot go over 8%, but I brew beers over 18.
Who's checking?
As brewers, we respect tradition.
And don't.
The anatomy of a brewer. Like, don't trust a skinny brewer.
Is there a healthy beer?
Just see it as liquid bread, you know? If you add gin, then rum, then whiskey, you're gonna have a bad morning. Beer is beer, you know?
Who's your competition?
We're the fourth biggest brewery in India.
Hashtag more beer. Welcome to JarXchange, Jose.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time. And it's great to shoot at breweries, you know, like we get to have some free beers at the end of the episode. Are we?
Yeah, right. Right. We will.
Okay, so we've been asking people that we are going to meet you, and Bira is a very famous brand. It's a household name, and people have a lot of questions. Bottled beer better than a canned beer? Is it true?
I mean, it depends on the person and the profile. It has some differences as well.
Tell me what's the difference. Like people tell me there's more fizz in bottle.
So I mean, bottle can hold more pressure because of the density of the bottle, and the cap can pretty much absorb some oxygen pickup that it can get from the packaging. But the can also preserves from the light, which degrades beer, and it skunks your beer. So that's why I prefer a can over than bottle, but it's up to everyone. And also the keg is always CO2 pumped, so you're always gonna have a fresher beer rather than the other both.
So alcohol is bad. Disclaimer. But when people talk about the healthiest of alcohols and everything, they place beer at the bottom.
Yeah.
Tell me the truth. Is there a healthy beer?
I mean, there's healthy beers, yes. I mean, not alcohol is healthy for sure. But for example, our beta, like it's 83 calories, only 3 grams of carbs, and it's our lightest beer. But beer does have a lot of caloric content, but also has protein. It has a lot of vitamin D. It's good for the bone density as well. Just see it as liquid bread. You know, it's literally liquid bread.
What's the right temperature for a beer to be served?
A proper temperature to be served, it depends on the conditioning of the beer.
Okay.
If you warm it up, it will enhance more of the flavors. So I would say a chilled beer is good, but it will numb your senses. So I would say like around if 6, 7, just let it warm a little bit, and then you can experience more flavors and enhance more of the properties of the beer.
Does every beer type need to be absolutely chilled?
No.
Give me an example where...
For example, the misconception of high chilled beer comes from American lagers.
Okay.
You know, they were like very heavy on adjuncts, very heavy on you know, adjuncts just sting the beer. Let's say rice, corn. So they want to have it colder because first it's refreshing, of course, but it's also kind of like that marketing scheme. But like, for example, if you go to England and you order a cask ale, for example, it's gonna be all like warm temperature, room temperature.
Is it?
Yes, they're conditioned warm. So that's pretty much a style. It's actually an art. Cask ales are an art to make.
And the mugs to be chilled as well. Is that a thing?
No, I would not recommend that for a lot of reasons.
Tell me.
Because so CO2 gets concentrated because of glass, because of the cold. So if the glass is cold, then the CO2 won't escape the beer.
Okay.
That would tend to have less aroma and all that. Another thing is that if you put the mug inside a fridge, all that particle inside is gonna go inside, and you're literally drinking that. So yeah, it's not really.
A lot of places the mugs are right out of a chiller, right?
Yeah.
So that's not the right way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, to each his own. But when I get that, I ask for a regular mug.
So what do you get here?
Yeah, if we chill them, we do have like a fridge especially for that without anything else. But we don't really serve chilled. We just serve it room temperature. Yeah.
Does the color of the beer have anything to do with the alcohol content?
No. There's alcohol.
Darker beers, more alcohol. That's a question we got.
No, yes. That's also something that it's morally fairly education. For example, our Malabar Stout is a dark beer and it's only 4.5%.
So it's
Same
not
as
roasted.
Guinness, yeah. So let's say, so dark beer comes from dark malts. So you get those malts because of roasted. They get more caramelly. They just have different properties, but it doesn't really boost the alcohol. The alcohol comes from pretty much the recipe. You have to, of course, enhance your sugar content to have more alcohol.
And darker beer is being more bitter. Is that true?
IPAs, I think IPAs have that. They're the king of bitter beers. But dark beers have that roasty astringency of, let's say, coffee. Coffee is bitter, but it's like an astringent bitter. So that's pretty much the same as beer.
What about beer bellies? A lot of my friends don't.
The anatomy of a brewer. Like, don't trust a skinny brewer. Beer adds gut because, of course, the calorie content. Yeah, it's always gonna be like that. Again, you're drinking liquid bread.
So it's nothing with beer. It's just high calories. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, so wine and cheese, beer and.
Oh man, I think beer is more versatile with wine, and that is something that is always done as a fact. Beer, so the fizziness in beer can lift and boost the oils that the cheese has in your palate, and it pretty much cleanses your palate. When wine just makes it a little bit more kind of like waxy, more stale. I'm not saying anything against wine. I love wine as well. But beer in general, with food, with everything, it's a lot more versatile than wine.
But
especially with cheese?
Why do you say wine and cheese? What is the logic of cheese and wine together?
I mean, I guess it's just the marketing thing of making wine nice, and more high end. I believe that beer has had the misconception of being a cheap product.
Yeah, that was the question.
And which honestly, like it's not really how beer should be portrayed. Beer should be portrayed as a culinary thing, not as you can get a can for 100 rupee, but that can go with any cheese. It can go with salad. You can do it with like a burger, like even peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Something that wine cannot do. And same as spice. Like you have something like very spicy food with wine. Wine is gonna degrade that, but beer is gonna elevate it because of the properties.
One more question is that tap beers are diluted. They're not as.
No, that's not true.
That's not true.
No, so tap beer is the same as a can or a bottle. I believe that it's fresher because it's always under CO2 pressure. So there's no oxygen pickup in it. Which oxygen, if your beer gets oxygen, it starts degrading to the point that it's kind of like gets some like stale flavor, kind of like cardboard kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we always want to avoid.
What's the shelf life of a
beer?
Yeah.
It depends on the alcohol content and depends on the style. The best way to drink beer is fresh, 100%. I would say the first 3 months is great, 3 to 4 months, depending on the shelf life of the beer. For example, IPAs tend to be fresher, better because hops tend to fade every time that it's. So you want to have that fresh beer. But an imperial stout, which is like, I would say, not in India because we have only up to 8%, but I've made 12, 13% beers that you can last for years. Like wine, you can age like wine. Yeah.
But have you observed this, that if you go to different places, and not about beer, if you go to different places, order the same tap beer, it tastes different?
Yeah.
I have observed this. So.
Oh yeah. It will always taste different because the conditioning is different in the keg.
But for the same brand?
Oh, for the same brand?
Yeah.
It should be all the same. It depends on how the lines are cleaned and how the maintenance in the system is.
Okay. And tell me about. So you're coming from Delhi now?
Yes.
Tell me the difference in the drinking culture of Delhi and Bangalore that you work.
Oh, it's so different.
Tell me.
So, if we talk about beer, Bangalore is pretty much the capital of craft beer in the country. We Bangalore has the most breweries. Delhi only has right now, I would say 4, just recent. So Delhi is very
4 breweries.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah.
Bangalore would have about 70.
Yeah.
I think.
So that's what I believe, that Delhi right now it's getting into beer, you know. But Delhi's alcohol, it's more kind of like spirits. It's very big on the cocktail scene, you know. So it's a lot of like mixologists and bartenders, which I also appreciate. That's also an art. But when it comes to beer, Bangalore is king.
I think Bira got a lot of people who did not drink beer
Right,
to
right.
drinking beer or trying
Yeah.
beer.
So the trend that I see with Bira is that we're reaching out to. I mean, Bira is for everyone, like I said. But what I like about Bira is that our flavors are expressed in a different way, especially with the innovation side. For example, new people that are coming into beer and getting educated in beer, then they're learning what an IPA is, what a pale ale is, what a stout is. And that is what the tap room pretty much hosts. They host all our innovation, which is kind of like the gateway
What is
to all this.
innovation brewing?
So innovation brewing is pretty much the most experimental way of making beer. For example, if I want to make a beer, let's say with chocolate or jiggery or any other flavors, then it's done and expressed in our tap rooms, which is pretty much the gateway of this. We want to do this because India is very new in craft beer. And in India, everything sells what works, you know, and we want to change that. You know, that's why, like right now, we have 4 or 5 IPAs on draft, you know, which not everyone has 4 or 5 IPAs on draft. So it also helps us to see what trends are good, what changes in the market, and you know, it's pretty much kind of like the way of us like seeing what's gonna be our next beer on the bigger scale.
On the bigger scale means retail.
Yes.
Means
yeah.
bottled beers.
Yeah. So if, for example, if it does very well, then we'll pretty much scale it up. You're gonna be seeing that with brands like our Hefeweizen, which has been like a massive hit, and we can share in our different outlets and our beer cafes as well.
How do you understand the winning formula? Like, do you try a lot of beers and then see the response and then come to one beer which is listed here, or how is it done?
So I mean, we first check the trends on what's happening. I've noticed that this is very broad when it comes to our tap rooms. For example, one of our tap rooms is in Gurgaon.
Okay.
In Cyber City, and there's a lot of like Europeans over there. So we've seen the trend of like British styles, German styles to be more dominant, rather than, let's say, our tap room right here or in Saket, which is another tap room in Delhi, where IPAs are kind of like getting that popularity. You know, people are getting more educated.
Flavors in different tap rooms.
Yes. So we kind of like change it up a little bit because I like the dynamic part of making beer, because our portfolio goes like from, let's say, our portfolio of cans to like this gamma of flavors, you know. Last year, on the innovation side by itself, we finished the year with over 80 different styles, you know.
80 styles?
Yeah, different beers that most of them India has never seen. In the taproom in Gurgaon, we have a black IPA, which is something that it's not very common in here. We have tripels, Belgian tripels. Right now, we're gonna be drinking, and we're gonna be talking as well about innovation per se. And there's styles that are not even considered styles. For example, our dark wheat lager. So a dark wheat lager, when I was formulating the recipe, I had in mind to do kind of like a Weizenbock, which is like a dark, it's a dark wheat beer. But I used some lager yeast instead of the Weizen yeast. So it just changes the property of how you drink beer. So yeah.
Seems like a pretty cool job, man.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it. I've been indulging it, and I love what I do. I am very passionate about it.
And you also seem to talk about it like an art, also like a science, right?
Right. It's a combination of both. On the art aspect, I see it like a chef. You know, like you're pretty much, you're making a recipe. from raw materials. You're pretty much making sugar, and then you ferment it, which is the science part. So you're pretty much playing with all these, I would say, like elements that just complement each other. And that's the beauty of beer.
What can you call as an Indian beer?
Wow, an Indian beer, I would say strong beer. Strong lagers are king in India, and it's not a common thing in the world, but in India it is.
So it's peculiar to India. Strong beers.
Yeah.
When you say strong, it's upwards of 5% alcohol. That's what?
As far as you can. So for example, our most popular is Bira Boom, and it's also in that range, and it's a very good selling beer, very popular.
What's the highest amount of alcohol in a beer available in the market?
In India, we have a cap, so we cannot go over 8%. But I brewed beers over 18.
Huh.
Yeah.
So there is something here which is over 18.
No, not here.
Okay.
In the like back in the US. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that you can do. For example, barley wines or imperial stouts. In the US, they tend to be over 12%, 12, 14.
So in India, 8% is the limit.
Yeah.
For bottled beer.
For packaged beer. Yeah. So this is an IPA. After Pale Ale, we moved to IPAs. IPA means India Pale Ale. So without India, there's no India Pale Ale, right? So and it has a very cool history.
Why is it called India Pale Ale?
Yes. So there's a cool history behind it, because when the British were colonizing India, in the I think it was like in around Calcutta range, they started, they needed beer here, but it didn't travel well on the pale ale and the ordinary bitters that they had back then. So some brewers realized that hops are a preservative.
Okay.
So it traveled very well. Yeah. So what they did is that they raised the alcohol to avoid microbes, and the preservatives in the hops pretty much made the beer travel very well. And that's why it's called India Pale Ale.
So basically, the origin is India only.
Or the origin is British. Is the British Empire? Yeah, for sure. Because they're more like on that. It acquires the name because of that journey that they used to do. But brewers already, it's documented that brewers already were doing higher hop beers because of that. It preserved the beer better. Beer has a lot of history. Like there's a lot of history behind beer in a lot of things that we even use today. For example, the fridge with Fritz Maytag. He invented the fridge, but that was when he acquired Anchor. So Anchor Brewing is one of the oldest breweries in the world.
Okay.
Actually the oldest brewery in the U.S. And he acquired. So Fritz Maytag invented the fridge, and so he acquired Anchor because it was in a bad shape, and he acquired the brewery and he invented the fridge for beer.
Are these theories, or this is?
No, this is actually true.
Wow.
This is literally true. Yeah. So same as, let's say, other range of styles. For example, India Pale Ale. Russian Imperial Stout is also another example of actually story. Like it's history. It's history.
Tell me one thing. Now, you said this is West Coast IPA.
Yes.
When you brew it and finally it comes here for people to drink, are there some tests, and what does it have to go through? Like, you have certified it as West Coast IPA.
Yes.
Is there any certification, or is there anything before releasing a new?
So I mean, we tend to go with the style. Okay. We just go with what the profile is, okay. And we're very adamant with this because we follow the guidelines on what it's called the Beer Judge Certification Program, or BJCP. That actually says what the style is, and we respect that a lot.
So that's about style. What if you put 9% alcohol in this? Who's checking? No one?
Excise, yeah. But so pretty much that defines the style.
Okay.
And based on beers that I brewed before, is where we want to showcase on these styles. But also in India, I see for the next beers that I'm gonna brew, for example, I put in mind seasonality. I put in mind local flavors as well. and mostly like what the trend would be.
So
you know?
Malabar Stout is a very local Indian.
Yeah, so Malabar Stout is brewed with local coffee.
Local
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah. So and it's something that we use in seasonality. We also do the local flavors as well. For example, we have which we're gonna try soon, mango lassi. So it's inspired in mango
What is
lassi.
it? Mango lassi.
Yeah. So it's beers that are inspired like that. Last 2 months we did a sour with tamarind. It's called Chutney Sour, and it was a collaboration with New Belgium, which is a big brewery. So we want to showcase local flavors, local. This is an Indian brand, so we should embrace it. And that also comes to my next beer, which is Pomelo IPA. So Pomelo IPA is also on the range of the West Coast IPA. So West Coast IPAs are this style is more on the American side, but Pomelo IPA we call it the Indian Pale Ale, because it's actually an IPA, lower in bitterness. I've noticed and I know that Indians don't really like bitter beer, so we toned down the bitterness and we added pomelo to that have that juicy character. So in the aroma, it smells like candy. It smells like citrus candy. It smells great. And when you drink it, it just washes with that freshness pomelo taste. And this is one of the examples of seasonality and flavors that you can use in India. The gamma in flavors in India is insanely big. When I first moved here, it changed pretty much the way that I experience flavors.
This is your first time in India?
Yeah.
When did you come to India?
A year and a half. Yeah. So we're gonna go with another lager beer. This is a lager, but it's also a wheat beer. This is our most experimental beer in our lineup. So it's called a dark wheat lager. We decided to brew it as kind of like a Weizenbock. So it's gonna be more darker. It's gonna be higher in the wheat content that we did. But instead of using the yeast that we use on, let's say, mango lassi or Hefeweizen, we use a lager yeast because it will add more. It's gonna be more drinkability. That was what we were looking for. When you smell it, it smells like toffee. It smells like toast, bread. It smells like very caramel. So all these flavors come from the roast in the malt. And you asked me before if it's stronger or not. That depends on the alcohol content. But the roast character comes from the malt. Yeah, so it's kind of like the coffee. Coffee has a range of different roasts, from light to medium to dark roast. Same as with beer. And that pretty much changes the way that beer is portrayed and the way that it's perceived in the palate. You're going to get that caramel, that toast that you get right here. And this beer is very, very diverse in the sense of it has a lot of layers of flavors. Because of the lager yeast, it's gonna finish very clean, very dry. But you're gonna have toast, and then it can switch to chocolate. It can switch to like any different flavors, which is amazing. First, that's our last one. Salud again. Oh yeah.
Very different.
Very different from the rest, right? This is our darkest beer. The reason why it's not as dark as well is because we think about seasonality. Like, for example, you don't want a stout under the heat, because it's not gonna be as refreshing. It's not gonna sell that very well. But we always like to have diversity. So a dark beer will always be on draft. Yeah. So I mean that's our gamma of beers right now.
Any theory of how did beer originate, or anything?
Wow, man. So like I said, beer has a lot of history in the world. So this is the theory. I don't know if this is true or not or whatever. But so these harvesters got a lot of barley inside these bins, ceramic bins, and they filled it up just for, let's say, to make, I would say, bread or just to eat, just to nutrient themselves. And then they went to, outside to hunt, and it rained.
Okay.
And then the sun comes out. So the barley starts sprouting. So it releases an enzyme that can cut the sugar, and it turns it into alcohol. That's how we actually make beer today. So that happened. Then it rained again. Then the sun came out, and then like 2-3 days after, these guys come, and they see this like liquid bread, honestly. So they try it, and they feel the buzz. They also saw a lot of healthy properties for it, because like I said, like all the nutrients that barley has, you have in beer, and it was like, oh, let's party, let's rage with this, and it was actually like that.
Okay.
Then yeah, we can go after to the Egyptian times,
Okay.
where this was a huge part of their diet. Yeah, the slaves when they were making the pyramids, and this is actually true because that is actually where they got their caloric content, and and that's literally very staple on the Egyptian culture. Beer is literally the liquid of kings. Then let's go to Germany. The kings originally, before hops were introduced to the world, the kings were the ones that actually made hops an ingredient in beer. When hops were introduced, it was kind of like the kings making beer. And also Hefeweizen was also the king's beer. So, it like throughout history, beer has been a huge part of it, especially world wars as well. For example, in World War II, the Scottish ale was introduced. Yeah. Like when the wars were colonizing around, when they go to Scotland, the brewers were like, don't screw us up, we'll just make beer for you. And that is where that beer was born, that style. Up to today, like hazy IPAs have been very recent. Now, West Coast Pilsners, they were introduced like years ago. The beer world is being evolving so much that up to this day, beer is very relevant in the world,
Tell me more about your India experience.
Man, wow, India has changed my life in so many ways.
Changed your life, 1.5
yes,
years.
in great ways. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, I mean, when I first moved here, I didn't know anything about India,
Okay.
and I landed here, and it changed the way I perceive the world, the way I think, the way I live. Even my diet, like I don't have the same diet that I have at home. I've gained like 20 kilos since I moved here, man. It's like, honestly, like, and the food is amazing, and just the gamma of, the range of flavors that I've learned right here, and I've had to learn, has been incredible. So it's like I'm gonna quote Bourdain right here. I came here and I like quoting Bourdain. Don't be a tourist, be a traveler.
Yeah.
So, and that's pretty much how I embraced India. And I got acquainted to it very fast because, a lot of things were happening at the same time. And I was just like, embracing everything. And I love it. It has changed completely my life.
How come Bira happened for you? How come India happened for you?
Long story short,
Okay.
Bira hired me before COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. But then that was like in between COVID hitting and all that. When I was going to travel here, I tested positive. And
Okay.
I couldn't travel. So I was like, I have to like wait until I'm this again and all that. And then there was this travel ban for years that I couldn't travel here.
For you?
For years, yeah. The travel ban lasted
Yeah.
for a long time until like COVID was like chill again and all that. I moved to the Virgin Islands. Back then I was in Puerto Rico. I moved to the Virgin Islands to make beer. And then out of nowhere, I get a call from Bira. I was like, hey, like the travel ban has been lifted. We want you. We still want you. So I decided to take it. And, just traveling the world, beer pretty much brought me to India. And, wherever my destination is, it's going to be because of beer. So beer's I just follow beer out of.
Okay. Tell me a day in life of an innovation brewer.
Well, a lot of reading, a lot
Apart
of
from
research.
drinking beer.
A lot of research, a lot of reading. I try to read a lot of new methods, new concepts that are being worldwide. It's a lot of studying. Like it's mostly studying every time.
Is it as glamorous as it is seeming from the outside? It just seems like a very cool job.
No, yeah. It's very dynamic, and it's a very cool job because you get to experience and play with flavors. Which the creative freedom that we have in Bira is great, and that makes me kind of like portray different flavors, different styles, and all that. But it's amazing. I love beer too much, like it has been 14 years for me in the industry, and it has completely revolutionized everything in my life.
Tell me, how does one become a brewer in life?
I'm talking about my experience. I didn't go to school for brewing.
Okay, there are schools for brewery.
Yes. You go to college for this, but there's two ways of seeing this. You either go to school, or you just go from the bottom. And that's what I did. I studied engineering, so I was working as a network engineer, and then I decided to take craft personally. So I moved to California, not just learn, but I wanted to go to school for this. But I got hired in one of the most important craft breweries in the world, which is called Stone Brewing. It's the 9th biggest brewery in the US. One of the pioneers of craft beer. And I started behind the bar. Then 2 months after, they moved me to the production side. Learned everything on the canning line, bottling line, and then I started from there, scrubbing a lot of tanks, doing the hard work until I was one of their lead brewers.
So that's your journey.
Yeah, so I
But
pretty
today,
much learned
is this
by
a
hand.
proper career? Is this something that someone watching wants to be a brewer?
This is my take on this. Don't give up hope. Just start from the bottom. The best way is that way, because you learn hands-on. Like right now, my knowledge of running a bottling line, not everyone has that. And like in school, you don't learn that. So just going by that is the best way, because you're really hands-on, learning, experiencing, and it'll make you a better brewer rather than school. School is very, very broad. Like for example, back home they still tell us that Christopher Columbus discovered America.
Did you never want to open your own brewery someday?
Always, man. That's always been my dream. But I'm enjoying the travel world. So I quoted Bourdain before, and I'll say that in beer, I want to be the Bourdain of beer.
Everyone is an expert in pouring beer. This is not how a beer is poured, right? Is there a correct way of pouring beer?
Yes. So first, you have to tilt your glass.
No. You have to show us.
I'll show
Can we
you.
just-
So what you want is to have a difference between the beer, and also you need head as well.
Okay.
So it will protect your beer. It will feel you less bloated. So right now we're showcasing our Beta Light. It's 83 calories, only 3.5% ABV, only 3 in carbs.
Okay.
So right now, what we do is that we tilt our glass 45 degrees. Now 45-degree angle, we just want to pour it like quite rigid, and then just go a little bit higher like that. And see the head right here? So the head will pretty much enhance the aroma, enhance the properties of the beer as well. Oh, wow, that was perfect. So yeah, so it will pretty much showcase a lot of what the beer wants to show you. The beer needs to talk to you as well. So, when you smell it, you smell the malt, you smell all the characteristics of it. Actually, this is for you.
What's the beer saying?
Drink. So yeah, so it pretty much showcase that. You do need to have head, because it will
By
dissipate.
head, you mean the froth?
Yeah,
or-
the froth.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it dissipates all that extra CO2 that you don't want in your gut. If not, like people say, oh, I feel bloated after beer, and that's pretty much why. Because they just go by the bottle.
Okay. Salud.
Salud. I mean, just by saying that, I'll go by the bottle anyway. So
Thank you.
it could be
Apart
better.
from,
but yeah.
are you paid in beers?
I mean, yes, that too. Yeah. So yeah.
Do you get free beers in Bira?
As a brewer, yes. Every brewer has free beer in their brewery, because you're pretty much.
And if you have
For
to
a
go
lot
on
of
a
reasons.
research tour and around Bangalore researching about different breweries,
No. I have to.
How many beers do you have in a day?
I mean, two a day keeps the doctor away.
Okay.